Good morning all. I am Dr. T.K. Ganga, Assistant Professor, PG and Research Department of Computer Science, Muttaram Government Arts College, Vellore. I welcome all of you for the national level webinar on digital ID or publishing articles in peer-reviewed journals. Now I request our HOD, Professor I. Annette Regina, to give a welcome address.
Good morning and welcome to today's webinar organized by PG and Research Department of Computer Science, Muttaram Government Arts College, Autonomous, Vellore. At the outset, I would like to thank our Professor S. Marimuthu, Principal in charge of our college, for encouraging us to organize this webinar. During the crisis, we thought of leveraging our strength with the brilliant minds to bring amazing insight to the members and to everyone participating in the webinar. We hope that this webinar is helpful to all, and our topic is digital ID, publishing articles in peer-reviewed journals, and the speaker is Dr. Silvakani. Before we start, let me explain how you can talk to us during the webinar. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can just write it on the chat box and it will be answered at the end of this session. Now it's time to introduce today's guest of honor, and it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce Dr. Silvakani, who accepted our invitation without any reservation. Presently, she is working as an assistant professor and head in the Department of Computer Science, Tiruvallur University College of Arts and Science, Arakkonam. Teaching is her passion, and she has 18 years of experience, and she has 14 years of research experience. Apart from that, she has published 34 research papers in international journal, more than 30 papers in national journal, 26 papers in international conferences, and she has presented 40 papers in national conferences. She is a reviewer of 38 international journals. She published a book chapter, and developed e-content. She obtained one patent from Intellectual Property of India, and she has got 6 awards from various organizations. I've just mentioned a very little about today's guest of honor. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you, madam. And now I hand over the session to Dr. Silvakani.
Thank you, ma'am, for the nice introduction. Now I hand over the session to Dr. Silvakani.
Good morning, one and all present here. I am very much elated to be a part of this wonderful session as a resource person, and brings me a joy to present in front of you all. Here, I'd like to thank Principal Professor S. Marimuthu, Convener Professor I. Annette Regina ma'am, Organizing Secretary Dr. T.K. Ganga ma'am, and all the faculty members of Computer Science Department, Muttaram Government Arts College, Vellore, for providing me such a wonderful opportunity. Before starting my session, I wish everyone are safe and healthy. Is my PPT visible to you all? Yes, now it's visible. Today, my topic is digital ID, publishing articles in peer-reviewed journals. Through this presentation, I will try to disseminate some basic knowledge about the objective and meaning of research, steps in research process, purpose of research writing, steps to research writing, quality of research paper, how to publish papers in a quality or reputed scholarly peer-reviewed journals, and the unique digital IDs which is necessary for each and every research person. Here, I'd like to give a disclaimer that all the materials, study articles, publications, and the screenshots and quoted examples taken from my own papers. And also, I have taken some references from various sources from internet. I wanted to start my presentation by telling this quote by Benjamin Franklin: "Tell me, I forget. Teach me, and I may remember. Involve me, and I learn." Mentor is a person who guides you with a sincere advice about what you have to do in your life to achieve your dreams. It is a blessing to have a mentor in your life because mentor gives you inspiration and direction to move forward in your life by increasing you believe in yourself. For me also, there are 3 mentors who helped me to find out the right direction in my professional journey. I'd like to thank Dr. K. Sarukesi sir. He is the person who inspires me to reach where I am today. He only ignited the spark in me to think like a researcher even after my PG course. Also, I'd like to thank Dr. S. Tamarai Selvi ma'am for her continuous source of inspiration and motivation in my professional course. I'm really inspired by her hard-working nature, and I always try to put my 100% efforts whenever I decided to do something. Next, I'd like to thank my guiding star, the ever-winning personality, my mentor, my teacher, Dr. R.S. Rajesh sir. I must thank him for your wonderful guidance and support in my entire career and groomed me well to move confidently in all academic steps. Because of him only, I always feel motivated, energetic, and inculcate positive approach in all situations. And I have no words to explain that how much I feel myself lucky to have such a great personalities in my life. Shall we proceed to the topic? Yeah. I want to share some opinion and experience so that you may get some idea about research. Please understand, different people may have different perspectives and definitions for research. But according to me, research is something that people undertake in order to find out things in a systematic way, thereby increasing their knowledge. In this definition, kindly note 2 important points. One is in systematic way. That is, for all researchers, you have some guidelines, methodologies to be followed to find out things. Second point is increasing their knowledge. Bringing out some little knowledge to this world. That is enough. That is research. Research is solving problems that have no known solution by anyone in the world. From this definition, we clearly understand what is not research. Research is not learning from books, papers, news reports, or even from your professors. Anything that can be learned is not research. Some scholars are saying that I'm doing research by searching relevant information online. This is called searching and not research. Always these people, they are searching online, but not at all they are doing research. Many of them need to understand the world and to solve new problems and improve the existing solutions. So, research can find answers to things that are unknown. The transformation from known to unknown, that is known as research. Now let us see what are all the various objectives of research. The main objective is to find out the truth which is hidden and which has not been discovered as yet. Already I said that is known to unknown. The transformation of your known to unknown. Another objective is to find out the information and then evaluate them in efficient manner so that they can easily design the research problem and solve them also. According to a famous person, Hudson, all the researchers you may, Hudson, all progress is born of inquiry. Doubt is often better over confidence, for it leads to inquiry, and inquiry leads to invent or invention. It brings out the significance of research, increased amount of which makes the progress possible. So these are all the various objectives of research. Now let us see what are all the various research process we have. Understanding the research process is an important step toward executing a thorough research or study. Let us examine the different phases in research process. Okay. A deeper understanding of the process of research will help you identify the similar feature that occurs in the different fields. There are 6 steps involved in research process. The steps can be divided into 3 phases: planning phase, research phase, and then finally the presentation phase. Actually, we have 6 steps, but we are dividing this into 3 phases. The first step is identify the research topic. Selecting a topic can be the most challenging part of a research assignment. Selecting a topic for which you can find a manageable amount of information. Do a preliminary search of information sources. Just search information to determine whether existing sources will meet your needs. If you find too much information, you may need to narrow down your topic. If you find too little, then you may need to broaden your topic. But always keep in mind that you should be original. Please don't copy it from others. Even the topic, please don't copy it from others. Please be original. The second step is, here it is your second step. The second step is to identify the research problem. The best way of understanding the problem is to discuss with your guide, who is usually an inspired person and has several research problems in mind. Often, the guide puts forth the problem in general terms only, and it is up to you, the researcher, to narrow it down and phrase the problem in operational terms. The researcher must at the same time examine all the available literature to get himself acquainted with the selected problem. The basic outcome of this review will be the knowledge as to what data and other materials are available for operational purposes, which will enable the researcher to specify his own research problem in a meaningful content. For this purpose, the abstracting and indexing journals and published or unpublished bibliographies are the first place to go. Next step, this is your third step. Next step is how to conduct your research. With the direction of your research now clear to you, you can begin locating material on your topic. If you are looking for books, do a subject search. Use the library's electronic periodical databases. Choose the databases and formats best suited to your topic. Use search engines. The next step is collecting the research data. There are several ways, either through observation, interviews, or through questionnaires, or through any schedules. You can collect your data. It depends upon your subject area. Computer science is different from management. Management is different from language. Language is different from physical sciences. So depending upon your topic, you have to collect the data. Next one is to analyze and interpret the collected research data. You have to analyze your data according to your plan. The result of the analysis are then reviewed and summarized in a manner directly related to your research questions. Now, the last step is to write and present your results in the form of a paper. There comes our burden. Writing a good paper is a very, very, very important skill. Begin by organizing the steps you have done and do a rough draft wherein you get your ideas on paper in an unfinished pattern. This step will help you organize your ideas and determine the form your final paper will take. After this, you will revise the draft as many times as you think necessary to create a final product. So these are all the various steps in a research process. Then, purpose of research writing. The research process does not end when you have solved your mystery. Imagine what would happen if a detective collected enough evidence to solve a criminal case but she never shared her solution with authorities? Presenting what you have learned from research can be just as important as performing the research. Presentation is very important. Research results can be presented in a variety of ways, but one of the best or most popular and effective presentation form is the research paper. A research paper presents an original thesis or purpose statement about your topic and develop the thesis with information gathered from a variety of sources. Writing a research paper is an ideal way to organize your thoughts, crafts, narratives, and make arguments based on writing. Okay, knowing how to write a good research paper is a valuable skill that you will share your knowledge throughout your career. Researching and writing a long paper requires a lot of time, effort, and organization. Next, we are going to see what are all the steps of research, of writing a research process. How does a research paper grow from folder of brainstorming notes to a polished final draft? No two projects are identical, but most of us can follow a series of these basic steps. Choose a topic, plan and schedule time to research and write, organize research ideas, then draft your paper, revise and edit your paper. Step 1 is to select a narrow down topic from your research base as a title for your paper. Take time to plan your research writing. At least spend 1 hour a day, because creating a schedule is a good way to ensure that you do not end up being overwhelmed by all the work you have to do as a deadline approaches. The next step is to organize your finding and decide which sources to cite in your paper. You will also have an opportunity to evaluate the evidence you have collected and determine whether it supports the focus of your paper. Then the next step is drafting your paper. Now you are I think you are ready to combine your research findings with your critical analysis of the results in a rough draft. You will incorporate source materials into your paper and discuss each source thoroughly in relation to your thesis or purpose statement. When you cite your reference sources, it is important to pay close attention to standard conventions for citing sources in order to avoid plagiarism. That is, the practice of using someone else's words without acknowledging the source. Later in the forthcoming slides, we will see how to avoid plagiarism, that is, copying from other sources or others' paper. The final step is to revise and edit your paper. You have to revise and polish your paper. Polishing is more important. you might organize your paper's structure or revise for unity and cohesion, ensuring that each element in your paper flows into the next logically and natural flow. Okay. You will also make sure that your paper uses an appropriate and coherent tone. Once you feel confident in the strength of your writing, you will edit your paper for proper spelling, grammar, punctuation, and formatting. If you complete this final step, you will have transformed a single idea into thoroughly researched and well written paper. Now you can proud of yourself. Yes, finally you have drafted a paper, whatever the form it may be, whether it is a rough draft or whether you can completed polished draft. Anyway, you have completed, you have a paper in your hand. Okay. While writing your paper, keep in mind that the first thing to be noted is plagiarism. What is a plagiarism? It occurs when you use another person's words, expressions, or ideas without acknowledge the source. Is plagiarizing a crime? Is it a crime? Yes. Actually, plagiarism is not in itself a crime, but like counterfeiting, fraud can be punished in a court for prejudices caused by copyright infringement or the violation of moral rights. In our academic industry, it is a serious ethical offense. So, in your research paper, don't copy a single line from others' paper or document. Researcher, please follow this. In your research paper, don't copy a single line from others' paper or document or from others' thesis. It is an academic dishonesty. Passing off another work as your own is not only poor scholarship, but also means that you have failed to complete the learning process. At first, it may seem very difficult to develop your own views, and you will probably find yourself paraphrasing the writings of others as you attempt to understand and assimilate to their arguments. However, it is important that you learn to develop your own voice. You are not necessarily expected to become an original thinker, but you are expected to be an independent one by learning to access critically the workflow of others, weigh up differently or differing arguments, and draw your own conclusions. You should avoid plagiarism because you aspire to produce work of the highest quality. Once you have grasped the principles of source, use, and citation, you should find it relatively straightforward to steer clear or without any plagiarism, clear of your plagiarism. Moreover, you will reap the additional benefits of improvements to both the lucidity and the quality of your writing. It is important to appreciate that mastery of the techniques of academic writing is not merely a practical skill, but one that tends both credibility and authority to your work and demonstrate your commitment to the principle of intellectual honesty in scholarship. So, try to avoid plagiarism in your paper. Don't copy it from others, not even a single word, or a word, not even a single line. Okay. Writing a paper is a skill, absolutely right. A few years ago, I sent a version of a chapter of my book to what is one of the most selective journals in my field. Next week, it was rejected, which of course I didn't like, because who likes to be rejected? Actually, this rejection was very, very, very protective. Why does the rejection sting me less? Because the reviewers' report were actually very positive about the submissions for rejections. They offered really helpful suggestions for this revision. After resubmission, it got accepted and I have got a great feedback, and it's going to make this stronger in the end and will enable me to place my article anywhere with a greater confidence. After that experience only, now I regularly serve as a peer reviewer for journals. This is only something that has begun to happen in the past 5 to 6 years with any regularity, and it changed my perspective about reviewer comments when I write peer review. I take this job very seriously, and I'm really bringing to help author to make the article better. So you will have better ideas. Your ideas will have more impact. Try to present your ideas which is understandable by the readers. So I'm just telling, writing papers is a skill. Good writing is a skill you can learn. It is not that much difficult. You can even easily learn how to write your papers. So present your ideas which is understandable to the readers. A reader's perspective is very, very, very important. So this is my methodology of writing a paper. See here, first my idea, then write the paper, then do research. Maybe you can think why we have to write the paper and then do research. I'll just explain you. The ideal research paper writing strategy is like a marathon. This is not an exam for which you can prepare in a spirit for the night. Starting a paper is really difficult, and scholars spend a lot of time figuring out how to start off a research paper. That's why I suggest you to begin the writing process from the mid. Write your main paper body before you write an introduction and work on it afterwards. Explain all the main idea in the body paragraphs. Okay. Once you are done with the main section, revise it and make sure that all the ideas that you have added in it are relevant to your chosen research topic. Make the needed changes and revise if you find more suitable ideas and materials to add in your paper. It happens that after completing the paper, we, the scholars, find more solid and relevant ideas for their paper. This is why writing the main body section is better than beginning from the start. So, my focus is creating an idea, write a paper, and then do research. Now it crystallizes what we don't understand, right? So first write a paper. With that rough draft, do research. Revise until you're convinced. Okay. Then the next one is how to cite a work in your paper. Cite your sources properly. Give credits where credits is due. Cite your sources. Citing or documenting the sources used in research serves two purposes. It gives proper credit to the authors of the materials used, and it allows those who are reading your work to duplicate your research and locate the sources that you have listed as references. The MLA and APA are the two popular citation formats. MLA stands for Modern Language Citation and APA stands for American Psychological Association. Failure to cite your source properly is a plagiarism. Already I informed you, avoid plagiarism. It is a crime. Then, your flow of your paper. Write your paper in a narrative flow. The narrative flow refers to how a story moves. Imagine you are explaining at a whiteboard. A piece of writing with narrative flow is like a peaceful stream, while one without it might be more like a river blocked by a dam. Nothing is more jarring than an inconsistent point of view. So, once you have chosen one, stick on to it. While it can very easy to slip up and switch to a different point of view. Doing so is very confusing for the reader and interrupts their reading. So, whatever you are doing, just stick on to that point. Don't confuse the readers. Okay, this is my way of writing a paper. This is my flow. First, describe a problem, then give an idea, then give the working details, then compare my idea to the other people. That is a very good one. Then use the active voice. Actually, the passive voice is equally respectable, but it deadens your paper. Avoid it all at all cost. Using active voice in your writing means that the subject of the sentence comes first. This is the most straightforward way of presenting your ideas because it creates a clear image in the reader's mind of who is doing what. It eliminates the ambiguity about responsibilities. Now I'd like to give you the overall structure of your paper. I'm just giving just a general guideline for each section of your research paper. These are all only suggestions. Okay, a good research paper should contain abstract for about 4 to 6 sentences. Introduction 1 page. My problem statement 1 page. My idea 2 pages. The details 5 pages. Then the related work 1 to 2 pages. Conclusions and future work half to 1 page. This is my way of structuring a paper. Now let us see one by one. The first one is the abstract. I usually write the abstract last. I have already informed you that I usually write the abstract last. My concentration is on wholly on the body part. The abstract should be less than 250 words that everyone should know, right? It should indicate the problem to be investigated, purpose of the study, methods, major results, interpretations, and implications of the result. The abstract is a summary of your research. It is nearly as important as the title because the reader will be able to quickly read through it. Keep the sentences short and focused. Avoid acronyms and citations in the abstract. No citations, which means you are writing your abstract in your own sentences, not even quoting references or sources from other authors. Okay, the next one is Introduction. In the introduction part, you include background information on the subject and your objectives. The author, that is you, should explain the key terms, give historical information on the problem studied, and cite other studies that have obtained relevant results. The introduction ought to contain your work explanation, the subject of your exploration. You may incorporate here the motivation behind why you picked this specific theme. Your introduction should comprehend your work, which consists of a significant focus, or the remainder of the paper will cover and how we are going to move your methodology, then how your flow should be in the next part of your paper. Then describing your problem. In the introduction part, you can divide it into two parts. Defining the problem or describing the problem, state your contributions. Defining your problem or describing your problem. The problem statement should introduce the reader to the importance of the topic being studied. The reader is oriented to the significance of study. You should place the problem in a particular context that defines the parameter of what is to be investigated. The introduction introduces a brief discussion of why this is a problem. Use an example to introduce the problem. Here, this is my paper which published in 2007 along with my guide. As I said earlier, use an example to introduce the problem so as it is having a good perspective of the readers to understand the problem, why I am just bringing this problem to my research. Okay. Next is state your contributions. The list of contributions drives the entire paper. Do not leave the reader to guess what your contributions are. You can use a bulleted list. Here you see the bulleted list. Actually, this is a paper which I have recently published in 2019 along with my mentor, Dr. S. Thamarai Selvi. So here she guided me correctly to bullet the list of contributions. It should be only in a form of bulleted list. Then the next one is the background study or literature survey or related work. The reader may not have enough background to understand your idea or your survey. Background info must be a short tutorial. Don't include everything about the subject. Just what is needed for the reader to understand rest of the paper. Please, that is enough. Please give that is. Related work or review of literature can be before the idea presentation or after the results and discussion. It depends on your subject area, whether it may be physics or maths. It depends on your subject area. In that part, it complements what others have done. So do a better thing what others have done. Giving credit to others does not diminish the credit you get from your paper. A literature review is designed to provide an overview of sources you have explored while researching a particular topic, and to demonstrate the readers how your results fits within a larger field of study. A literature review may consist of simply a summary of key sources. It might give a new interpretation of old material or combine new with old interpretation. Usually, in the conclusion of the literature review, identify where gaps exist in, how a problem has been researched to date. The purpose of literature review is to describe the relationship of each work to the others under consideration. It identifies new way to interpret prior research. It identifies areas of prior scholarship to prevent duplication of effort. It locates your own research within the context of existing work. It is very important to give an explanation of how each work is similar to and how it varies from the others. Once you have settled how to organize your literature review, you are ready to write each section. When writing your review, you should use evidence, be selective, use quotes sparingly, summarize and synthesize your results, keep your own voice. While the literature review presents others' ideas, your voice should remain front and center. For example, weave references to other sources into what you are writing. It should maintain your own voice by starting and ending the paragraph with your own ideas and working. Next important one, use caution when paraphrasing. When paraphrasing a source which is not your own, be sure to represent the author's information or opinion accurately and in your own words. Even when paraphrasing an author's work, you still must provide a citation to that work. Please don't include the research procedures that were used in identifying the literature to review. Thinking interdisciplinary about a research problem can be avoided. Excuse in applying new ideas, theories or concept to an old problem. While conducting a review of the literature, maximize the time you devote to writing this part of your paper by thinking broadly about what you should be looking for and evaluating. Review not just what scholars are saying, but how are they saying it, how they are saying, how they are presenting. Search Google Scholar to identify who has subsequently cited leading scholars already identified in your research literature review. This is called citation tracking. And there are a number of sources that can help you identify who has cited whom. Particularly scholars, particularly from outside of your discipline. Here again, if the same author are being cited again and again, this may indicate the new literature has been written on this topic. No new literature has been written on this topic. Okay, the next one is methodology. So before that, I like to show you an example related work of mine which I have published a paper in 2010. Improving ID performance using GA and NN. This related work, it just giving the idea of what I have said earlier. Then methodology, that is presenting your idea. The methods section describes a rationale for the application of specific procedures or techniques used to identify, select and analyze information applied to understanding the research problem, thereby allowing the readers to critically evaluate a study's overall validity and reliability. This section answers two main questions. How was the data collected or generated? That is the first question. And the second one, how was it analyzed? The writing should be direct and precise and always in past tense. Methodology is crucial for any branch of scholarship because an unreliable method produces unreliable results, and as a consequence undermines the value of your interpretation or the findings. The methodology section of your paper should clearly articulate reasons why you choose a particular procedure or technique. The method must be appropriate to fulfilling the overall aims of the study. Okay, but the methodology should discuss the problems that were anticipated and the steps you look to prevent them from occurring. For any problem that do arise, you must describe the way in which they were minimized or why these problems do not impact in any meaningful way your interpretation of your findings. It is also important to allow other researchers to adopt or replicate your methodology. See, this is my paper published in 2011. It is a genetic algorithm approach. This methodology section clearly attribute procedure, the method for fulfilling. See this diagram? For fulfilling and I'm discussing the problems that were anticipated, and I'm just providing methodology, my methodology in a diagrammatic way. That is very important, the presenting the idea. Then next comes your conclusions and future work. Before conclusions and future work, it is also important an effective written methodology should introduce the overall methodological approach for investigating your research problem. Here see, this is my research problem. It should indicate how the approach fits the overall design, this research problem. It should explain how you intend to analyze your results. Do not provide any background information that doesn't directly help the reader to understand why a particular topic or why a particular method chosen, how the data was gathered or obtained, or how it was analyzed. That is not necessary. Remember that you are not writing a how-to guide about a particular method. You should make the assumption that readers possesses a basic understanding of how to investigate the research problem of their own, and therefore you do not have to go into great detail about specific methodological procedures. That is not necessary. Do not confuse the terms method and methodology. A method refers to the technical steps taken to do the research. That's all. The methodology refers to a discussion of the underlying reasoning why particular methods were used. Once you have written all the elements of the method section, subsequent revision should focus on how to present those elements as clearly and as logically as possible. For clarity, when a large amount of detail must be presented, information should be presented in subsections. Suppose if it is 3, then 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, like that, you just go ahead. Don't put everything into a single section. Okay. If needed, you can use appendices for the raw data. Actually, in this paper, I used KDD 99 dataset, in which I represented that in my appendices. The result section is where you report the findings of your study based upon the methodology. The result section should state the findings of the research arranged in a logical sequence without any bias or interpretation. Be concise. Whatever you are writing in your methodology or result, be concise. non-textual elements appropriately, such as figures and tables, to present your findings more efficiently. A good strategy is to always remember the background section of your paper after you have written up your results, to ensure that the reader has enough context to understand the results. A good approach is to present a synopsis of the result, followed by an explanation of key findings. Kindly include a systematic description of your results, highlighted for the reader's observation that are most relevant to the topic under investigation. Use the past tense when referring to your results. Reference to findings should always be described as having already happened, because the method of gathering data has been completed. Be as factual and concise as possible in reporting your findings. Do not use phrases that are very vague. Do not repeat the same information more than once. Don't repeat the sentences again and again. It gives a boring look of your presentation. Next comes the conclusion, which is the end of your paper. Conclusions can be combined with your future work. Actually, this is a paper which I have published in 2008, which is published in Scopus. Scopus indexed 1. Here you see the conclusion. The conclusion is intended to help the reader understand why your research should matter to them after they have finished reading the paper. A conclusion is not merely a summary of the main topics covered or the restatement of your research problem, but a synthesis of key points, and if applicable, where you recommend new ideas for future researchers. A well-written conclusion provides you with important opportunities to demonstrate to the reader your understanding of the research problem, summarizing your thoughts and conveying the larger significance of your study. The conclusion can be where you describe how a previously identified gap in the literature has been filled by your research. You can demonstrate the importance of your ideas. Conclusions that are not too lengthy. Often, it should not have unnecessary information in them. Problems, drawbacks, and challenges encountered during your study should also be summarized as a way of qualifying your overall conclusions. Don't surprise the reader with new information in your conclusion that was never referenced anywhere else in the paper. Because don't confuse the author by giving new information in the conclusions. Okay. After conclusion, one thing I would like to inform you, that is proofreading. It is the act of searching for errors before you submit your paper to the journal. Errors can be both grammatical or typographical in nature, but they can also include identifying problems with the narrative flow of your paper, problems with the concise writing, and finding any word processing errors. Don't proofread for the purpose of making corrections at the sentence and word level if you still need to work on the overall focus, development, and organization of the paper, or you need to rearrange or change specific sections. Give yourself a day between the writing of your paper and proofreading it. Just give a break. This will help you identify your mistakes more easily. Simple precise language is easier to proofread than overly complex sentences, constructions, and vocabulary. Review the sources mentioned in your paper and make sure you have properly cited them in your bibliography. Do not confuse the act of revising your paper with the act of editing it. For proofreading, work from a printout, not a computer screen. It's better idea just give the printout to your friends or well-wishers to correct the papers. Actually, normally I just do the corrections or proofreading just by taking printout and give it to my friend Mrs. Vasumati of my department. Really, I'll be very thankful to Vasumati for correcting my papers and identifying my errors whenever I'm just publishing it in a journal. Thanks a lot, Vasumati. Now, we are in the second part of our lecture. Yes, it's how to evaluate the evaluation or equalities of a good researchers. How to evaluate the qualities of a good researcher? Just publishing a paper is enough? No. In this part, we are going to discuss where to publish a paper, quality of a researcher, the type of publications, what is the H index, what are the research quality, your indicator which specifies the solid profile as a researcher. One by one, we will see. The first one is publishing a paper. The reality of today's research is to publish a paper in a good reputed peer-reviewed impact factor journal. Right? I accept. Research is based on the publications, and in this sense, publication, they sustain your career. They are very important and they are used as an indicator of your qualification. So, the more you have citations, people are mentioning or citing your work. It is in a way or another representing your impact in a scientific community. We feel publications very important. Sure, absolutely, because it is advancing research when do a serious work. When you do a quality work, when you have a good research and you process them, you present findings and you share them with the community respecting certain protocols. You make sure that you are following the protocols while publishing the paper. It is not only publishing but publish in a scholarly journal. It motivates you that your work is concrete and it is well developed. In the previous years, it was not so common to publish in some fields or in some domains, and especially journal publication. It is very, very, very difficult to publish in a reputed, publish papers in a very reputed journal for all the domains. And I cross often I find people, when I discuss with them, I tell them, why don't you publish? Even though you have very good projections or projects, you have very good work, but they were simply just finding excuses, saying that we don't believe in the publishing process, or we don't have time. I'd like to say, if you are a young researcher, this is the rule. You have to go with the flow and publish to make a good implication. Whenever you have an idea, just write it, publish it, organize and publish it in a good reputed journal. Scientific journals, peer-reviewed journals we have. Articles are peer-reviewed to ensure that your paper meet the journal standard of quality and scientific validity. Selection standards can vary widely from journal to journal, that we have to accept. Conference proceedings are conference proceedings or the collection of research article, they are published in the context of academic conferences. Proceedings contain the contributions made by the researcher at that conference. They are written record of work that is presented to the fellow researcher. They are usually distributed as printed books or in electronic form CDs. Researchers are invited to submit articles on their research work with a call for paper announcement. Proceedings are also published in-house by the organizing institution of the conference in addition or via with an academic publisher. For example, lecture notes in computer science by Springer or any UGC approved journal. Actually, we have finished two conferences, the national level conferences in our college during the year 2017 and 2018 in tie-up with the UGC referenced journal, and I think many of my research scholars published their articles and they would have benefited out of it. Then the next comes to the quality of a researcher. How can we measure the quality of a researcher? Whether the quality can be simply measured by the number of published papers or the papers in journals with an impact factor. If their publications are in an impact factor journal, then it is considered as a quality publication. In this sense, researcher can be ranked and listed depending on their impact. When we talked about this, how it can be measured? There comes quality versus quantity. There is a balance between both of the quality and quantity. A researcher have lot of publication without impact factor or not high quality, and it is also not meaningful. So here the quality or the number of publication is not the point, and in the same time if you publish without quality it is meaningless. So it is a balance between both the quality as well as the quantity. Even a quality paper, just one paper is equivalent to more papers published in an unquality journal or not a peer reviewed journal. It is expected that you are more productive in your earlier career doing reviews, doing simple surveys, and then with the time or with after gaining your experience, depending on the completion or during the completion time, you can do more into quality. Starting with a simple concept, we can't expect such a quality paper. You can do some reviews only. So only at the finishing stage of your project or your PhD work, at that time you are able to produce a quality paper. Actually, quantity is much easier than quality, but quality is more or always more difficult because it requires lot of solid research work and results. Your ultimate goal is to publish a number of journal papers in a highly ranked journals that bring you credit as a researcher with a healthy number of citation. Next comes the impact factor. The impact factor IF of an academic journal is an index that reflects the yearly average number of citations that articles published in the last 2 years in a journal received. It is frequently used as a proxy for the relative importance of the journal within its field. Journals with higher impact factors are often deemed to be more important than those with lower ones. It eliminates some of the bias of such counts which favor large journals over smaller ones. or frequently issued journals over less frequently issued ones, and of older journals with the newer ones. How can we calculate the impact factor? For example, consider the paper published in previous year plus the paper published in the next subsequent years divided by the number of citations. It gives the impact factor of a journal. For example, impact factor of a 2020 journal is the average number of times published papers are cited up 2 years after publication. For example, consider impact factor of a journal 2020 is equal to A divided by B, where A is the number of times the articles published in 2018 and 2019 were cited in indexed journals during 2020. Consider it is 604. Suppose if you are having an indexed journal, it is having some articles which is published in the year 2018 and 19. The number of times the articles cited in the indexed journal is 604, and consider B is the number of citable items published in 2018-19 within a discipline. Citable items are usually article, review, proceedings or notes, not editorials or letter to editor, which is equivalent to 104. So, they have published 604 papers, out of which 104 papers frequently got the citable items. So, the impact factor of a journal is A divided by B. In this case, 604 divided by 104, which is equal to 5.8. This is the manual calculation of impact factor. Even so many indexing websites are there for predicting the impact factor, but the actual impact factor calculation is this one. It is the average number of items or times article published in 2018-19 were cited in the indexed journal during 2020 divided by the number of citable items published in the same years 2018 or 19. So articles published were cited in indexed journal divided by the number of citable items published. This is the formula for calculating the impact factor. Also, I'd like to give the impact factor is based on citation. Frequency of articles from the journal in their first few years of publication. Also, citation to the articles in a journal are not evenly distributed. That is the problem the researchers we are facing. In fact, some articles in the journal may not be cited at all, but a few highly cited articles could lead to a high impact factor. Therefore, the impact factor does not accurately reflect the quality of individual articles published in a journal. The next quality factor is H index. Always the higher officials, they are asking us, what is your H index? Where is your H index? How about your H index? This is not a magic. H index is simply an author metric level that attempt to measure both the productivity and citation impact of the publication of a scholar. The H index correlates with obvious success indicators such as winning the Nobel Prize, being accepted for research fellowships and holding positions at top universities. The index was suggested by 2005 by George Hirsch, a physicist D. San Diego as a tool for determining theoretical physics relative quantity and sometimes called the Hirsch index or Hirsch number. The H index is intended to measure simultaneously the quality as well as the quantity of scientific output. H index can be calculated by either manual method or by automatic method with the help of Scopus or Google Scholar. This is a H index. For author A, the number of document is equal to 20, number of citation is equal to 200, on an average 10 citations per document. H index is equal to 10. Is it correct? No, absolutely it is wrong. It should not be calculated as equivalent to the impact factor. Impact factor is having different formula. H index is having different formula. The H index is calculated by counting the number of publications for which an author has been cited by other authors at least the same number of times. For instance, H index of 17 means that the author has published at least 17 papers that have been cited at least 17 times. Even we can calculate the H index manually. Determine the citation of each article by the Google Scholar. First, the H index is the minimum number of times your paper are cited. Here I am just quoting my Google Scholar page, my paper which was published in 2007, Genetic Algorithm for Framing Rules for Intrusion Detection. See, cited by 50 persons. Here it is given cited by 50 persons. But I cannot calculate my H index as 50 because if you had published 10 articles and maybe the paper we cited 10 times, 8 times, 7, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, then the H index of such paper is 3, which means 3 of your article is cited at least 7 times. But the I10 index means how many of your articles are cited minimum number of 10 times by other author. In this example, your I10 index is 1 because only if your article was cited 10 times. Therefore, the more many of your paper are cited, the higher the impact factor and I10 index factors. Then next comes the citation quality. One of the major challenges in science is to measure performance of an individual using some objective measures. One of the simplest way to do it is counting the number of papers published. The main drawback of this measure is that the quality or standard of journal is not considered, and the quality varies from junk to high reputed journal. Thus, simply counting the number of papers is useless. Here, the impact factor of the journal comes into the picture. Already I have informed you the impact factor is calculated based on citations of the paper published in a journal. It means performance of an individual is counted based on the papers published in high impact factor journal. The impact factor criterion has also met a lot of criticism. If impact factor is not uniform among the disciplines, impact factor of a journal might fluctuate over the years. Impact factor is based on an average citation. Another problem is variation of impact factor every year. It means scientist performance or the scholar's performance will vary every year with the variation of impact factor of a journal where one has published the paper. In order to measure the performance and scientific impact, H index was introduced, right? Here a set of articles, a researchers is ranked in decreased order of the number of citations that they have received. Though H-index is a powerful technique to measure performance, it has its limitations too. It depends on the number of publications. That is the first problem. And all highly cited paper get equal weight. Now you may ask, citation is equal to quality? Whether citation is equal to quality? No. This raises a fundamental question. Whether citation of a paper reflects its scientific quality, in reality this is not true. But whatever criticism, the quality of researchers is maintained on by their citation index. No other go. It is measured only with the help of a citation matrix. There are a number of sources for getting citation information like Web of Science, Clarivate, Thomson Reuters, Google Scholar, Scopus, etc. See, this is my Google Scholar page where my paper has been how many citations per year. In 2007 it is at the peak, 2008, 2009 and 2010 almost it reaches the peak, then 2011-12, such that my citations it vary or it depends on the number of scholars cited your paper. Actually, this is the main drawback of this measure, the quality of the journal, right? The impact factor is calculated only with the help of the citations per year. So suppose if you have less citations, then automatically the impact factor will decrease. So we cannot no other go. We have to follow such some protocols of the scholars. See, this is my Google Scholar page and my citations. See, it is arranged according to the citations. This paper, it got 50 citations. This paper, 1832 citations. This paper, 15 citations. This paper, 14, 7, 3, 2, etc. So, come to a conclusion that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 papers are having citation more than 5 times. If you include my 6th paper, at least it should have cited 6 times. But here you look, it is cited only 2 times. So, my H index here calculated manually is 5. So, my citation H index is 5 because my paper is cited 5 times by the 5 papers of my paper. So, my citation, my H index here is only 5. It varies from years to years. Okay. So, the citation index either you can calculate manually or you can go through any Clarivate Analytics, Thomson Reuters websites or Science citation journals, etc. Now, we are in the last part of our lecture, that is digital identifier of researchers. What is a digital identifier? A digital identifier is a permanent digital unique identifier assigned to the researcher. This ID avoids frequent confusion of harmony. To differentiate S. Salvakani from K. Salvakani or from R. Salvakani, right? I am having my unique digital identifier. Whether you can ask me a question whether the digital identifier is mandatory or optional for a research scholar, I'll say it is mandatory. It is not optional. It makes it possible to link the product of this researcher activity managed by different information sources. There are many initiatives in this area to disambiguate the author's name. We have so many digital identifier of researchers. The main important three are Google Scholar, Scopus, ORCID profile, Publons, LinkedIn, etc. Okay, but according to me, this researcher ID is very important, and everyone should possess a researcher ID if you are a researcher. Okay, we will see one by one. The first one is Google Scholar. Authors are highly recommended to establish a Google Scholar profile. See, this is a profile of myself, Dr. Selvakani, Assistant Professor, Head of Department CS, Thiruvalluvar University College of Arts and Science, Rekonam. Right? It allows authors to create a public profile. Here it is mentioned as public. That appears in Google Scholar results when someone searches your name. Privacy settings for the Google Scholar profile are controlled by individual. That is, for my profile, I am responsible. Okay. Google Scholar allows author to track the citation to check who is citing your publications, especially the grey literature materials which are not equally indexed by databases. It also acts as a citation metric tool to use for reporting purpose. The service is also called Google Scholar Citations. See here, you see, this is my paper published in 2007, which is having a citation of 50. 2010 published paper having 32. 2009 16. 2011 14. Like that, I am having overall citation of my paper 125 citations. And my H index is 5. Already I have clearly explained how to calculate this H index and I10 index. So this Google Scholar provides a good service called Google Scholar Citations. Once if you see the profile, just by entering into the Google Scholar, you can identify the worth of the scholar. You can sign up for a Google Scholar Citation profile. It is quick and almost free. First, sign in to your Google account. A Google account is enough for creating a Google Scholar Citation profile. Once you have signed into your Google account, you will see group of articles written by people with name similar to yours. Click your article. Finally, you will see your updated profile. Double check the list of articles, and once you are completely satisfied, make your profile public. See, this is my public profile. It's now eligible to appear in Google Scholar when someone searches for your name. You also need to add a verified email address at your university or institution. To be eligible for inclusion in Google Scholar search results, you need to have a verified email address at your institution. Without verified email at your institution, you cannot include your papers public or your citations. That is a thing which is most scholars face very difficult in enrolling your Google Scholar. Next one is the Scopus. Wherever we are going, whether you have published Scopus journal, Scopus index journal, Scopus journal, right? What is a Scopus? Scopus is a huge multidisciplinary database with citations and abstract from peer-reviewed journal or from literature, trade journals, books, patent and conference publication. It provides tools for tracking, analyzing and visualizing the search results. It is Elsevier Abstract and Citation Database launched in 2004. Scopus gives you unparalleled and continuous access to critical research output from around the world. It provides the platform, tools and insights to connect academia, government and corporations. Scopus allows you to locate a particular author by just entering the author's last name, first full name, and the middle initial, as well as the current affiliation of the author. Result will, I'll just give you the example. Result will return a main author name along with variants of authors name that have been grouped into the author's profile and associated publications for that author. This is my profile and my citations, my H index, and the number of documents published in Scopus along with the year along with the publications. Scopus citation overview is a way for you to find and track citation data generated from a set of selected documents. And here, unlike Google Scholar, it won't allow all the publications published by you. Suppose if you publish a Scopus indexed journal, then only that paper is included in your Scopus database. So here in my profile, I have published 9 documents, 9 papers in a Scopus indexed journal, and the total number of citations is 15. Total citations, the H index is 2. So these are all the 9 papers I have published. Okay, if you have selected the publications of an author indexed in Scopus, you can make use of the citation. I'll just tell you how to generate citation overview and get the H index of an author. Just log in to your Scopus ID. Perform an author's search. A list of authors grouped by institution is then displayed, and click View Citation Overview. The H index for the author is shown on the right. See, this is the H index which is shown on the right along with the indexed publications. How many publications? Which publication is got more citation quantity, etc. will be displayed. So this is regarding Scopus ID. The next one is ORC ID. The expansion of ORC ID is Open Researcher and Contributor Identifier. ORC ID provides a universal non-proprietary solution by linking your publications or research activities. It provides you a persistent digital identifier that distinguishes authors from other authors. We have some supported automated linkages between the author and their professional activities. Registering for an ORCID identifier helps to promote discoverability among multiple information platforms and workflows, as well as establishing a unique presence for researcher and scholars. Registration for the ORC ID is free, and privacy settings are also controlled by you only, like Google Scholar. ORC ID is linked among other identifier systems such as Scopus Author ID, Researcher ID, and even LinkedIn. This ORC, it produces a 16-digit unique number. You can also import your work from Scopus to ORC ID. You can use the Scopus to populate the publication section of the ORC ID profile. Just create an ORC ID, click on Import Research Activities, choose the Scopus ID, Scopus to ORC ID wizard to start importing publications. ORC ID is actually a unique 16-digit number assigned to you, like Aadhaar number. It is a unique ID. My ORC ID is 0000000268457563. So this is my unique ID, and it is very much helpful for me to locate my paper with combining with DOI, digital object identifier, which is assigned to each and every paper you have published. Okay, so while publishing or while linking ORCID with Google Scholar or Scopus, just use DOI of your published paper for automatic linkage of your paper with your particular citations or your digital identifiers. The last one I wish to discuss is LinkedIn. What is LinkedIn? LinkedIn is a social, professional networking website for people in professional occupations with privacy settings available. It is a very helpful resource for recruiting or job seeking purposes. In LinkedIn, we have an option to create a custom URL containing your name, your LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network on the internet. It resembles like your Facebook or your email. It also consists of some facilities like inbox, announcement, your promotions, job seekers, etc. Having a LinkedIn account also means that you can use the site to research companies, recruiters and hiring managers, which is helpful before submitting applications and showing up to interviews. In short, having a profile is a good idea in LinkedIn. So this LinkedIn, it is having this is my LinkedIn page. Just its appearance is just like a Facebook. You can message who are all contributed or who are all linked with your profile, and you can also post your own papers, tags, link, whatever you want to post, your qualifications, updations, whatever we wish, you can do it here. Okay, and some announcement are also here. Just you can create LinkedIn account with the help of your Gmail account. It is enough, no other thing. Okay, so now I'd like to conclude my lecture. Research is weight training, not sightseeing. Tourists are not welcome. We are not allowing tourists. That means it is not a place to visit. Come, visit, go. It is not allowed. Doing research needs a lot of effort. First, you should consider doing research only if you can spend enough time. My suggestion is that you need to spend at hours a week. If you want to accomplish anything at all, before you can contribute or need to spend time understanding the problem, learn the relevant knowledge, tools and skill. Just allocate 1 hour per day for your research. That is enough. A single day consists of 24 hours. Can't you allocate a single hour for your research? Practice makes a man better. Just continuously allocate 1 hour a day will give a quality research for you. You need not know what has been done. In most cases, work with a team. You need to survey existing solutions or references. Compare them to understand the strength and limitations in each solution. Finally, you need to document this process. Research needs a lot of effort. Understand, you are not a student. You are now a scholar. So, focus on solving your problem thoroughly. Explain the solution in speaking and writing. Evaluate the solution carefully. Stay, revise, modify until a solution is found. Don't expect anyone to know the solution. If they know the answer, you have no contribution. If you want to have a successful career, choose a job that requires research. Again, I'm just telling, research is a weight training, not sightseeing. Tourists are not welcome or recommended. Just spend continuously at least an hour for your research. Okay, so welcome to the research world. Redefine your future with your research. Thank you, one and all, for your patient listening. And I'm welcoming you to post your questions or queries in the chat box. Yes, your queries, please. Thank you, one and all, for the patience listening. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now it's time for feedback. I request the participants to give your feedback.
Hi, this is Alfred here from St. Joseph. I never ever had a wonderful online webinar like this before. It was highly boosting me. To be frank, I have been invited by my friends to take this national level online webinar. Before that, I have no clue about this entire session, especially about this digital ID or peer reviewed journals. After taking part this After taking part in this webinar only, I came to know a lot of valuable information. Even now, I am more and more curious to learn a lot of new things from this topic by my own. And the professor knows how to make us understand very easily. Especially their presentation was really an admirable. Such a knowledgeable staff shared the knowledgeable information with us. 1 year or 2 years back, I tried to publish one article, but I was not having proper guidance, like where to go, what to do, how to do, and all. But now I have some good, clear picture why we must publish this article, in which format or in which way, in which procedure we have to do that. I learned these things from this webinar. In order to get qualified published articles, we must know the importance of the peer reviewed journals. I really thank you for arranging this national level online webinars. Once again, thank you all.
I am K.S. Padmashree, working as an assistant professor in Thiru Kolanjiyapar Government Arts College, Virthachalam. Today I have attended the webinar conducted by Mutharangam Government Arts College, Vellore, in which Dr. S. Selvagani gave a detailed analysis about creating a journal and enhancing content development through peer participation, which would be useful for PhD scholars and research students to do their work in an easy manner. And I have gained some knowledge about creating and publishing journals. Today's session was very useful and informative. Thank you.
Hi, hope you're all staying safe in this global pandemic. And I wish you all to stay safe. This is Prasad from the Faculty of Computer Science, Tagore Government Arts and Science College, Puducherry. Friends, after this lockdown, we have experience in attending lot of webinars, and all these webinars are focusing the broad areas of data science, IoT, machine learning, Industry 4.0, online learning tools, and so on. but this webinar titled Digital Identity and Publishing Papers in Peer Review Journals is really a unique of its kind. And I am very sure that this webinar will be an eye-opener for all the budding researchers who are pursuing their research so as to enable them to publish their papers in the right journal. Friends, the UGC has a lot of recommendations regarding the paper publishing activity, and the budding researchers are striving hard to find a right journal. And this is the right time this webinar has been introduced. So I would like to add a few words about the resource person of this webinar, Dr. Selvakani, Assistant Professor of Computer Science, Thiruvalluvar University, Government Arts and Science College, Arakonam. Madam has a very rich set of experience in both teaching and research. She is a reviewer of lot of international journals. She has lot of patents and awards to her credit. And surely, I am very sure that Madam will be exploring all the avenues of this particular aspect so that this webinar will help the researchers in all ways for a better publishing. So at this juncture, I would like to thank and congratulate the organizing committee, that is the PG and Research Department of Computer Science of Mutharangam Government Arts and Science College, Vellore. So I wish you all a success. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I am Mala, the head of the Department of Computer Science, Tirupattur. Actually, I wanted to say a few words about this webinar. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this webinar, that is Research and PG Department of Computer Science, Mutharangam Arts and Science College. Really, you organized it very well. And a word of appreciation to the resource person, Dr. Selvakani. Ma'am, really you did a very good job. The points which you explained in this webinar would be very much helpful to the students who are doing their research work. For that, we would be very grateful to you. So you explained how to write a good research paper and how to publish it in a reputed journals, then how to get digital ID in order to publish the research papers and all. Really, it was a very useful session. I hope such type of session will be conducted in the future also. I encourage you to conduct such type of seminars through webinars. So once again, I would like to congratulate all the organizers of this webinar, and my special thanks to the resource person.
A very good afternoon to one and all. I am Jayaprada, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science, Dr. Ambedkar Government Arts College, Chennai. I am extremely privileged and honored to have been given the opportunity to propose my feedback for this fabulous and wonderful webinar. I express my deep sense of appreciation and thankfulness to our Honorable Resource Person, Dr. S. Selvakani, for accepting the invitation and sharing her knowledge and ideas on digital ID and publishing research articles on peer-reviewed journals. Ma'am, your wide coverage on the topic has revealed us the importance and significance of digital IDs, and as upcoming researchers for claiming our authority over our own works. It was a pleasure to have you here, ma'am. Also, I would like to thank the principal, the head of the Department of Computer Science, and all the members of the organizing committee of Mutharangam Government Arts College for organizing the right webinar from the right person and of course at the right time. I once again thank you one and all for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this fabulous event. Thank you.
Hello all, this is Marianus from Mutharangam College. I'm really happy to share my feedback on today's session, Digital ID, and publishing articles in peer-reviewed journals. Thank you so much, management, for giving us this wonderful opportunity during this pandemic to learn new things. Thank you so much. And I just want to share my feedback to our resource person, Dr. Selvakani ma'am. Ma'am, I really am thankful to you because you have given us a number of ideas on publishing articles and digital ID. Initially, I was very much confused about publishing papers. Even I am not sure about what is the importance of paper publishing. After this session, I came to know about that publishing articles will help me in many ways to choose my career and to pursue my higher education. Publishing articles will be very much helpful. So these are things that I have learned during this session. I'm really thankful to you. The points which you have given during this session, have taken a note on these things: preparations on paper, execution, submission process. So these points are very much takenable. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, management.
Thank you, participants, for your valuable feedback. Respected speaker, Dr. A. Selvakani, respected principal, Professor S. Marimuthu, beloved HOD, Professor I. Anastasia, honorable professors and participants. It gives me immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks for this event. First of all, I would like to propose a hearty thanks to our resource person, Dr. A. Selvakani, for making an excellent presentation and for providing valuable information. I would like to thank our principal, Professor S. Marimuthu, for his support and encouragement. I would also like to express my sincere thanks to our beloved HOD, Professor I. Anastasia, for her moral support and guidance. I am happy to express my thanks to our faculty members who have helped me in making this webinar a grand success. Last but not the least, I would like to thank the participants for their cooperation and support. Thank you one and all.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे